But I think my body of work speaks for itself. If you want sheer violence, you know who to call.
Right, I'm not a West Coast gangster. Right, man. I'm from Miami, Florida. That's Miami, South Florida.
And that's just baptizing people. I'm not God, but I'm putting motherfuckers in another planet when I'm done with them.
After nearly 2 decades of fighting as a journeyman, Jorge Masvidal's mixed martial arts career peaked in 2019 when he starched Darren Till in his backyard. Scored the fastest knockout in UFC history against Ben Askren, and captured the symbolic BMF title by picking apart Nate Diaz. Within a matter of a year, however, it all came crashing down when he lost twice to Kamaru Usman, and Masvidal now needs a win more than ever. Things could go from bad to worse for the MMA legend if he fails to bounce back into the win column in his next fight against a sizable favorite in Gilbert Burns at UFC 287. The odds are undoubtedly against Masvidal, but he's made a career out of overcoming them. In today's edition of Hype Sports Fighter Stories, we'll dive deeper into Jorge Masvidal's career and consider these questions. Is he a journeyman fighter after all? Or will he prove his critics wrong yet again by upsetting Gilbert Burns? Let us know your thoughts on today's topic, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so we can keep bringing you more stories you love. Jorge Masvidal has been fighting for as long as one can remember. As a 10-year-old, Masvidal engaged in street fights as a means to make some extra money. As a teenager, he made a name for himself by participating in unsanctioned brawls in UFC veteran Kimbo Slice's backyard, where he was referred to as Ponytail. Before taking up MMA professionally, Masvidal came up with his Gamebred moniker because of his ability to fight through pain and fatigue. In 2003, Masvidal made his mixed martial arts debut and defeated his opponent by knockout in the first round. Unlike most of his peers, Masvidal didn't make it to the UFC after a few big wins. He had to work his way up by fighting in different promotions, most notably in Bellator and Strikeforce, where he caught the attention of the UFC bigwigs. By the time Jorge Masvidal got his call from the UFC, he had already fought 33 times, with 23 victories and 7 losses to his name. Gamebred made an instant impact in his first 2 UFC fights, beating Tim Means and Michael Chiesa, but his hype train was derailed by Rustam Khabilov in 2013. Masvidal's first 6 years in the promotion were full of ups and downs. He won some fights and lost some. He won fights he wasn't supposed to win and lost those he wasn't expected to. Many considered him a journeyman up until 2019, when his life changed dramatically. Masvidal was fighting a 2-fight losing streak when he was booked to face Darren Till in the UFC London main event. Till was the favorite, and he was back to win fairly easily, despite the fact that he was also coming off of a loss. In the first round of their fight, Till stalked the MMA veteran relentlessly and even hurt him with a big left hand, but Masvidal managed to survive thanks to his toughness. In the second round, Masvidal started opening up a little more and put Till on the back foot. The back and forth action had the fans on the edge of their seats, and the stage was set for a cracking main event. But 3 minutes and 5 seconds into the second round, Masvidal threw a quick 1-2 which landed right on the button, and down went the hometown hero. A hush fell over the English crowd as Masvidal celebrated what was a major turning point in his career. Masvidal's one-hitter quitter against Darren Till earned him a fight against multi-promotion MMA champion Ben Askren, who was coming off a shaky but impressive win against Robbie Lawler in his UFC debut. The build-up to their fight was intense. Askren, being the trash talker that he is, managed to get under Masvidal's skin. Thinking that his insults would put Miami's pride off his game, little did he know he was poking the bear instead. After weeks of exchanging verbal jabs, Jorge Masvidal and Ben Askren finally locked horns inside the UFC octagon at UFC 239. On the outside, Masvidal looked pretty relaxed as he stood against the cage with a cheeky smirk on his face. On the inside, however, he was waiting to rip Askren to shreds. And as soon as the referee signaled the two to fight, Gamebred took a few steps forward forward and then charged at his opponent. Askren level changed to attempt a double leg, but Masvidal connected with a devastating flying knee, which put the Olympian to sleep in just 5 seconds, which is the fastest knockout in UFC history. That night, Masvidal turned into a viral sensation. He went from being a journeyman to being one of the biggest stars in combat sports. And thanks to his newfound fame, he managed to bag a blockbuster fight against Nate Diaz, which was for the symbolic BMF title. The two locked horns at UFC 244. And from the beginning, it was clear that Masvidal's confidence was through the roof. He picked Diaz apart throughout their first fight that lasted 3 rounds, landing the more impactful shots and hurting Nate multiple times. By the end of their 3rd round, Diaz's face was a bloody mess, and after a doctor examined him, the fight was called to a stop. Masvidal secured the BMF title and even had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wrap the belt around his waist. The longtime lightweight and welterweight contender was on top of the world after UFC 244. But as they say, the higher you fly, the harder you fall. Masvidal faced a minor setback when he faced Kamaru Usman in a short-notice welterweight fight at UFC 251. Gilbert Burns was supposed to fight Usman, but after he withdrew due to COVID, Masvidal stepped in on 6 days' notice and gave the Nigerian a tough fight. Usman managed to win by a comfortable decision nonetheless, but Masvidal was praised for his gritty performance, even by the champ, who promised him a rematch with a full camp. Masvidal demanded that as well, promising that if he was given a good 2 to 3 months to challenge Usman, he'd shut his lights out. He got his wish at UFC 261, but the result was very anticlimactic. In the 2nd round of their rematch, Usman landed a straight right and put Jorge Masvidal to sleep in one of the nastiest knockouts of the year. After getting knocked out cold by Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal faced his friend turned bitter rival Colby Covington in a grudge match at UFC 272. The build-up to the fight was way more intense than the Askren one, as Covington dragged Masvidal's wife and children into the mix during a bitter rant at his arch-rival.
Yeah, that's a good one. Forget about your children, you deadbeat dad. You a deadbeat. Maritza paid for our shit.
Covington's trash-talking was chaotic as he did cross some lines. Masvidal promised to make him eat his words, but inside the cage, he couldn't. The fight wasn't even close as Covington dominated Masvidal for 5 rounds to earn a comfortable decision victory. That was Masvidal's 3rd consecutive loss, and one that still hurts him to this day. When he steps inside the octagon to face Gilbert Burns at UFC 287, Masvidal will have a lot to play for and a lot to lose. A 4th consecutive loss will likely signal his end as contender in the division, so it's a must-win situation for him. It's also his chance to prove that he's not a journeyman and that his last 3 losses have come against the best in his division, which is nothing to be ashamed of. Masvidal is still a key contender in the division for now, given his history with Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, both of whom will battle for the welterweight title next. If we look at Masvidal's career record of 35-16, he's fought more than 50 times. He's a fighter through and through, and takes on fights without caring about matchups. The fighting business today is a lot smarter than it used to be a few years ago. Fighters, especially at the top of the food chain, are very specific about their matchups. And maybe if Masvidal was also smarter about his matchups, especially early on in his career, he would have less losses and more recognition. Knowing Gamebred, however, he would never say no to a challenge, no matter how tough it is. Masvidal's next test in Gilbert Burns at UFC 287 is as tough as any he's had before. And if he can pass it with flying colors, he'll jump right back into title contention yet again, whether someone likes it or not. Is Jorge Masvidal a mere journeyman, or is he one of the best fighters in the world who will prove his doubters wrong once again when he steps inside the octagon at UFC 287? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you liked our video, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you get notified the next time we upload one. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.